Hello, everyone. I'm Father Alexander,
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Father Dan Wagner.
and this is a Bridge Between, where we bridge our knowledge of the scriptures. We bridge from one liturgical season to another. And this time, we're bridging from one host to a guest host. Father Dan Wagner is in the Diocese of Upper South Carolina at St. Michael's Episcopal Church in Easley, where you were just installed as the rector.
That's correct. We had our installation or the celebration of new ministry back on Wednesday, November 20th, and it was a blast. It was amazing, Alex, because, well, one of our classmates, Father Brian, was there from League City, Texas, but I kept hearing over and over from the parishioners, we've never had one of these services before, and that really was skunking it. I was like, I don't understand that. It really just surprised me. So,
well, first time for everything, and
they were all blown away. It was a blast.
Well, those services really, they inspire you. They really do.
Yeah.
And my favorite part of the service is where they give you all the things that are the signs of your ministry, like, the bishop giving you the holy water and the oils and the keys and things like that, because it can get pretty comical. The first time I was installed as a rector at my previous parish, they gave me like one of those big set of like prison keys, like from the old days, like Pirates of the Caribbean style. So I thought that was pretty cool. This time they just kind of gave me a set of regular keys, like to say, don't lose this. This opens all the doors to the church.
Well, I was completely expecting both my wardens to come up with some kind of ring with about 50 keys on and go here and just, everybody laugh about it. But apparently that somebody put the kibosh on that, but it's okay. It was a lot of fun. I did try to, when the canon gave me the cannons, I kind of was like, I don't want to touch those. But then I turned around and I said, of course I'll obey my bishop. So a few of them got it. But it was a blast.
You better hope they all got it.
Well, yeah.
So Dan, I've asked you on this week because Father Dave, who is my normal co-host, he's on vacation on a cruise.
Good for him. Where is he going?
I don't know. I just know he's on a boat and there's a buffet, and that's really all that I would care about. I don't care where the ship is going to, pull into port. I just care about the cabin and the buffet.
There you go.
So he's enjoying himself for Thanksgiving with his wife and his son. So all kinds of fun happening there. Good. But the show, as they say, must go on. And we are going to be talking about Advent 1. And can you believe that we're already going to be starting a new liturgical year?
The answer to that is no, because I've just had a massive transition in my own life with leaving St. Augustine of Canterbury in beautiful Aiken after being there for 7.25 years and then having a month off where you're supposed to relax. That's not true. And then the home sale had fallen through, and then getting the second house and then my mom passing away. But it's just like all of this stuff has just been relentless, and next thing you know, it's oh my god. And Alex, you know me, I love football and whatnot. I've practically watched maybe 2 or 3 games the entire season, and so I really want to get the TV set up and do nothing on that Saturday after Thanksgiving. But yeah, in a blink of an eye, it is going to be December, so that does blow my mind. And you've been in a transition going to your new parish. And we're both in that situation of we're the new guy, and so everything for that first year is new, and we're trying to figure things out.
It's interesting because I've been at my new parish now just over almost 9 months, and I just can't put that into my brain that it's been 9 months.
I know,
since I came to St. John the Divine, started in April, and so really. We see that life is about these transitions, and some of these transitions are joyful and some of these transitions are sorrowful, but all of them matter and they all affect our faith. And so as we kind of look at the readings for Advent 1, you might say that we're really talking a lot about transitions. We're talking about these changes taking place in the world, changes taking place among people, and then really changes that God's self really is instituting.
Yeah, no, I as you were talking, I've obviously I always think back to what Mother Gata, our pastoral theology professor, talked about the winding down of time at the end of the church year and at the beginning of the church year, and so it seems counterintuitive that we should be I mean, Advent is a season of preparation and waiting and getting ready for something. And yet we're talking about the end of all things first. We're not talking about the baby Jesus.
And that's what I think is so interesting for people as we enter into this Advent season,
Yeah.
because in reality, we have to talking about the end of things, because we're not talking about the birth of Jesus as if it's about to happen. It has already happened. We are commemorating it at Christmas. Advent really is, I think, geared towards more about the preparation of the time to come, where we will welcome Jesus again in his glory. This is completely countercultural to the preparation for Christmas, which started about a month and a half ago.
Yes. And just the ridiculous of the secular, where you have Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas all in a home improvement store or in a in a grocery store or whatnot. And so it's just, and if we were in Mobile, there ought to be Mardi Gras stuff set up. So uh,
Exactly. It's like we can't wait. We can't give the time. We
yes,
can't give each event its due. So as we kind of go into the readings, one of the themes that I have kind of picked out is that God has said there is an appointed time for certain things.
okay,
But it's not like an appointment. It's not like, well, I'll meet you there. It's a set time where God is going to do certain things, and it has to happen in order for the world to conform to this plan that God has been really instituting and working out, this plan of salvation and plan of kind of rectifying all the damage done by the fall of humanity. So is one of those readings that we see today kind of jumping out at you and talking about that?
well, I think you get that immediately out of the Jeremiah piece. As I mentioned off air, I think the Jeremiah and the Psalm really go nicely. If you just look at Jeremiah, it's in himself and not the notion of him talking about the branch, the divine branch from David, ultimately being Jesus. Um, but it's a great, really back and forth in those sense, because Jeremiah was from the northern kingdom. Here he is in the southern kingdom, and the northern's already fallen, and they don't trust him, and they put him in the cistern, and he's around. He's in darkness, and I think you get the notion. To me, I kind of saw the notion of darkness in Jeremiah as well as in the Thessalonians, because Thessalonica was definitely, I mean, it's in Greece, but it was a Roman
Mhm.
city, and it was a major trade destination. But you had the cults of the emperors there. You also had the pantheon of Roman gods as well as the Greek gods. So you're really in darkness, and you're kind of, how are we going to navigate? And yet they are excelling, and you compare them to the Corinthians, and all they're
Yeah.
doing is fighting. And we all want to have the ability to speak in tongues. Like, get out of here, quit talking like that. But then obviously our gospel, with the end of all things with Jesus. But you were wise how you were talking earlier about, it's not the end in the sense of, but it's how God is finally going to just um,
Rectify. Yeah.
rectify, or I was trying to say perfect, but
Yeah.
purify was
Yeah.
coming out.
Perfect.
But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
He's going to perfect the creation, that how, and you put it spot on about the fall. So it's going to rectify that.
Well, I think something that you've hit on is, if you look at the readings, there's different kinds of preparation taking place.
Yeah.
Okay, in the Jeremiah reading, we have this taking place that God is saying, "I will prepare the world, and I will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David." He is going to prepare a person from the lineage that he needs to prepare it from. Right,
Hmm.
that's kind of one preparation. Then you have Thessalonians, and that is, may you be strengthened, your hearts in holiness, be blameless. That's personal preparation,
Yeah.
right? Each one of us is called to, as Paul would say, run the race and continue in that perfection of holiness that comes from living a Christian life and engaging with what Jesus has said and taught. And then the last part is in Luke, where it's yet another kind of preparation, where Jesus is saying, read the signs,
Yeah.
be aware of the way the world is. It will tell you when the time is coming. This is actually probably one of my favorite ones, because when we begin to think about all the different things, and I just want to read the first part here: there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And, we start talking about earthquakes and all kinds of things.
Right.
The reason I love that particular text is because people have misused it so much. And they've
Well,
used it to
we
try
don't
to,
know.
what I'm saying is because they keep trying to predict
Yes.
when something is going to happen, as if we haven't always had calamities. But what Jesus is saying is that this will be known. It will be understood. There won't be confusion. This is the time to prepare. So Jesus says, be on guard. Be on guard and don't let your hearts get weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness. That's the other preparation, the preparation that we take personally that has to do with making sure that we are on guard.
Uh, One of the overarching I thought about, especially from the gospel, is about prepare, pray, and have purpose.
Mm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
you could be vigilant, pray often, obviously read the scriptures, and then pursue a life that, as you alluded to, a holy life, a godly life.
Yeah.
And I think that fits nicely with the notion of Advent being the beginning, and I don't know, I can see where you're going with that.
Well, if I'm a preacher this Sunday, and I am preaching this Sunday, one of the questions I would like to ask the congregation
Yeah.
is to say, okay, if in fact, right, we are supposed to be getting ready, what does ready look like? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what does ready look like? And if Jesus were to come, would we be ready? I would say, of course, the answer is no, we would not be ready. But
Yeah.
would we be at least getting in the process of being ready?
Trust the process, right? That's as they
Right.
say.
As they used to say in seminary, trust the process of that you are going through. And we're like, I want to trust the process, but I also want to trust that I'm going to graduate.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But I think in the one of the commentaries I read off of Thessalonians was, even though Paul is applauding and just yay, but it's almost like he's saying you lack one thing, and that last thing is Jesus' return, that it perfects it, and that's something that we can't wait on that. I mean, let me rephrase that. We don't know. Obviously, we don't know when that's going to happen, and so it's the notion of just being. It is about a life of prayer. It is about a life of worship, and it's a life of avoiding the what was this? What does Scripture say in the Luke lesson about being weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of this life? And I think that's dissipation is it's the effect of after having a really good time out the night before, and so that's I had to
I
we had the
remember that.
we had the adopt a highway this week, and as we were cleaning up stuff, picking stuff out of the ditches, it's like it reminded me of smelling the fraternity house after a party, and so I thought, oh, I know what that is. So, but it's not just about just partying hard or whatever, but it's also about the worries of the life of the world. Because you and I, how many pastoral conversations have we had with people over the years about worrying about how is an election going to turn out? How is my marriage going to handle the change? Because we're going to have a child or something like that. The worries, is my football team going to win? Ha ha ha. But we get weighed down with that, and then how are we preparing?
Well, I think that I think you've hit it on the head, because I think there's two different kinds of worry. I think there's kind of the frivolous worry, right? Like I gave up worrying about Florida State, a couple months ago. they're 2-10
After that Georgia Tech game. Yes.
Yeah, I've given up worrying about that. Yeah. But then there's the other kind of worry that I think is legitimate, which is things like I'm worried about a diagnosis that I've just received, or I'm worried about how my family, those kinds of things. But even those worries have to be put into context alongside the return of Jesus, to say that he will sort all things out.
Right.
It doesn't mean he'll sort it out the way that we want it. It just means he'll sort it out. And, a question that I would ask is, what does it look like for a person, for a congregation to be on guard, to be aware? Because it's more than just the whole look busy, Jesus is coming.
Yeah,
that old saying.
Yeah.
It's got to be more than that.
that maybe when you said that made me think back to seminary with Mother Cami. That was one of her sermons during Advent was about looking busy. Um, I think that is a good question, and I don't have a good answer
Well,
immediately off
that's
off the top of
okay.
my head because I have to think about stuff. I'm not as smart as you in that respect. I think a lot of this goes back to um, not necessarily, I mean, but semi-regular church attendance, sitting
Mhm.
in the church week in and week out, getting some drip irrigation, receiving sacraments, where yeah, you can suddenly think and you can remember right two perfectly, and
Mhm.
suddenly Father Dan's going to switch us to right one, which we are. I'll be practicing that because I haven't done it in a year, but I think that piece is a positive piece that you're having some type of regular church attendance where you are sitting where you just if you can just take this thing and just put it off to the side
Yeah.
and listen. And maybe it's a word from the scripture, maybe it's a word from one of the lessons, and it cuts you, and you think I need to amend my life in some capacity.
Well,
But
I think
yeah, go ahead.
preparation in the spiritual life um, begins with an examination. A self-examination.
Mm, yeah,
It begins by asking, do I feel prepared? Do I feel equipped in my spiritual life? And for an individual who's beginning the season of Advent, when there's so much noise, literal noise around you, what you were pointing to with your phone is so true. We need to put down some of these implements and instruments of noise and say, what does preparation look like? Well, maybe preparation looks like changing my habits.
I like that.
Preparation, looks like changing what I consume. There's actually a theory, like a word that I'm starting to use with people, because if you go on Facebook or social media or YouTube, there's something called the algorithm that
Of
follows you
course, yeah,
everywhere, right?
yes,
And so if you start consuming certain things, you start to get more of it because it
sure.
wants to keep you connected.
It
What
wants
if
it
we
wants to
change?
keep you upset
Yeah,
or
yeah,
nervous or having anxiety.
anxious, you
Yeah.
know.
Instead of the
Um,
devil making me do it, it's the algorithm made me do it.
Exactly. And so,
Seriously.
what if we changed our algorithm? What if we started intentionally selecting things that were counter to some of the things that we've been listening to that are making us anxious, and begin to find some things, that can be in our digital life, but also in our personal life. Just
Yeah.
saying, I'm not going to talk about certain things because I know it's just going to upset me, and it's not going to cause any fruit to be born out of this. I think a good question for a preacher this week and their congregation, and asking what does it mean to be on guard, is to ask ourselves, is worship at the heart of what we do? Is worship at the heart of what we do?
Is worship at the heart of what we do
Yeah.
in our lives?
Well, as parish, like as a church, as a faith
Okay.
community, is your primary focus beginning with worship? That the people come together, they pray, they sing, they are fed, they are preached to, and then they are commissioned and sent out.
Right.
Is that the
I,
basics?
I like that because when you think, well, we just did Adopt a Highway. The men of the church are going to fry up turkeys and smoke them and also smoke hams. So the fellowship of the parish hall is going to smell like poultry and pig, which sounds good to me. But um, what's our motivation from that? We make money off of that, and it will go into and the ECM, the Episcopal Church men, actually have internal what they would consider outreach, and then also external outreach, where they will give locally to a local nonprofit of some sort. I would hope that the desire to go out there at 3 in the morning to fire up this massive smoker is more than just having fun and fellowship, but at the heart, like you say, all of this began by coming in on a Sunday morning, hearing the Collect of Purity, hearing the lessons, kind of shaking off the world, listening to the sermon, professing the faith, praying, confessing, receiving absolution, receiving sacrament, and then going back out the door. I would hope that that event, and I think that it is a product of of the regular of worship.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, Dan, is because there are times, and it can happen in every congregation, every faith community, that we can lose focus. We can, not make the main thing the main thing.
Right.
And so, what I'm hearing from you in talking about these various outreach ministries or fellowship ministries is that they're excellent opportunities, but if they're not flowing from a sense of Christ-like love that's rooted in worship and encountering Jesus, that's where we get the problem. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, that made me think. I was going to try to find it from a previous Sunday from the lectionary page, but that was one of our psalms
Mm-hmm.
about if the Lord doesn't have a hand in building this, that the labor is done. It's all done
Right.
in vain.
Exactly. So I say this because this first year at St. John the Divine, where I'm not doing anything kind of spectacular, quote unquote, in
Oh,
regards to
that'll come later, Father. Yeah.
in regards to Xmas worship, Christmas worship, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Do I want to have a Christmas program? Absolutely. I want to do some of those things. But I've also been in faith communities where the Christmas pageant takes so much focus and so much energy that we lose focus in other things.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of what I'm saying when it talks about being on guard. That might be something to talk about with your faith community as a preacher, and saying, is the worship and the prayer and the time that we have together praying with one another, is that what we're presenting to the world as why you should be here with us? Or is it something else?
So you would like to think the answer is yes, it is, and that we're almost mirroring the folks in Thessalonica.
Well, yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate for a moment and
Oh yeah.
saying that sometimes the Episcopal Church or just faith communities like to, do a lot of different things and market a lot of different things and host a lot of events to attract people to the church. But really, what I have found that attracts people and brings them home and keeps them in a faith community is that they connect with the worship. They encounter the living Christ. And as we're getting ready to encounter when Christ will come again,
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting ready to encounter Christ in the manger on Christmas, it would be kind of a good question to ask, what does our worship look like as we get ready for that? Is as a priest, am I approaching worship faithfully and prayerfully? I have a tendency to just kind of wander around and run around like a chicken with my head cut off if I'm not careful.
Right. But
So
we're
all
busy.
of that plays in.
Yeah. And that's not it's not edifying to God. It doesn't help the parish.
No.
If you or I are running around with our heads cut off. Busy.
So,
I
for
like
this.
I like where you're going with that. That's
So,
yeah, go ahead.
So I say, as we kind of come to the end of our time together, as we kind of come to start to wrap all these things up,
Sure.
I would say for preachers out there, for persons who may be sitting in the pew, this is a wonderful time to take stock, do some self-examination. It's a semi-penitential season, we say. I don't treat it as a fully penitential season in my
I
parish.
know a priest who really wanted to push that as being penitential years ago.
Well, I
But
kind of.
that person's not on this video call. Don't worry.
Oh no, absolutely not. He's not here right now. But what I would say though is that it is a time where we can pause in the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah.
And say, Lord, where am I in relation to you? Because I don't want to miss when you arrive. I want to be there, and not just be there. I want to be present, fully present when you are there.
Be present and having your head and hands looking upward in joy and not in fear.
Absolutely.
That's another piece.
Absolutely.
So that's so
Well, Dan, it's been great having you on here. I hope you'll come again, or maybe this will inspire you to start your own podcast. I wouldn't mind guesting on that one. But it has been a pleasure to have you on today.
Brother, I appreciate it. I'm glad to help out. I hope something I've said is triggers what needs to be triggered, and happy to pinch hit anytime, brother.
Well, I appreciate that. It's always good to have friends. And don't forget to, for send this out to your congregation to let them know that you're now famous among the, less than 10 people who download the podcast, but you're famous now.
Absolutely.
You know,
Maybe we could double that number. Who knows?
exactly.
They'll say, Father Dad, how come you didn't use any of that information in your sermon? So,
because you forgot.
because I forgot. Yeah, I'm still not tracking right. Yeah.
But don't forget to, like, comment, and subscribe for all those of you who are listening. Enjoy the Advent season. Try to pause, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Amen. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks
Amen.
be to God.